Hey, it's Michelle Nesky, the Posh PA, and I recently did a mock interview with one of my students that I thought would be pretty interesting to share with you here. In this interview, I go over some different types of interview style questions, and you can really see how I coach an applicant through different answers and how to structure them for interview success. So check it out. All right, I just turned the recording on.
You're good. Um, there was a TV screen off to my left that had the names of all the students that were coming in that day for
Oh, wow.
interviewees. So I was watching the screen. I'm like, all right, I got to know these names. I made sure to make conversation with people while we were waiting. And then the people next to me who like seemed shy, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go out of my comfort zone. I'm going to reach out first. Just try to make a good impression.
Yeah. That's great. Okay, so are there any specific types of questions you would like to address before we get started?
I am here to learn. So
Okay.
whatever you have for me.
Okay, so I think it would be good if we went over some different types of questions, maybe some that you might see on MMI style, and then maybe some that you might see on traditional. It sounds like your interview is going to be more traditional. So we'll lean heavier on those sides, but sometimes they throw in some scenarios in your traditional style interview too. So I always think it's good to add some, some questions like that in there just to make sure we're covering all of our bases. So the way this will work is basically I'll ask you a question, you'll answer it as if we're on a real interview. Sometimes I'll ask a few questions in a row. Other times I'll stop and give you feedback, just depending on what the question is like.
Okay.
And do you know if your interview is live or Zoom?
It is in person.
Okay, great. That's a little bit easier. Okay. All right. So my first question is, tell me about yourself.
So do you want the whole background or just the brief points?
I want whatever you want to tell me.
All right. So I am adopted by a single mother. I came from India. She adopted me when I was 2 years old. That's when I really got into healthcare the first time as a patient. Had a lot of medical issues we had to address, which was okay. She did her best to put a roof over our heads, and I love her so much. It was myself and my older brother, who is her son from a previous marriage. And then I started working at the age of 15 in a healthcare setting. So I was the food dietary person. So that's where I really got interactions with patients and seeing like the smile on their faces that I brought when I brought their food. And I'm like, okay, because I get it's their low point of their life. They don't want to be there. They want to get out as soon as they can. If I can make their time a little bit better, that's what I'm there for. So I did that. Went to college at Tiffin University. I studied exercise science, was my undergrad. I was a D2 pole vaulter. Love that.
Nice.
Yes. What else did I do? I took a break after my 4th year of college and I joined the military as a hospital corpsman. And that's where I really fell in love with the medical field and doing medical skills like phlebotomy, EKGs. What else? We did vitals a lot, dental work. So a lot of really hands-on stuff. I love that. Got out, did my training for a year because I did reserves first. And then I went back to school, finished my exercise science degree, got a job as a patient care assistant at a local hospital here in South Bend. Did that for a year, loved it. I have a soft spot for stroke patients and motor vehicle accidents patients. Took a year. So I did that for a year. And then I decided to go active duty full time as a hospital corpsman. And I do that now at Battle Creek. And I also am the funeral coordinator there, the urinalysis coordinator, and the command fitness leader there. So my hobbies are photography, golf, running. Although when I go running with my dog, it's more of a sprint. Yes, weightlifting and Pilates.
So what inspired you to go into the military?
So actually, my best friend did.
Okay.
So he joined right after high school. And we had a serious conversation one night, and I said, if anything happens to you, I'm going to join the military in your place. A couple years later, I'm not going to cry. His birthday was just this week. So a couple years later, he was on his way home for leave to visit his newborn nephew. Unfortunately, he didn't make it. So I went into the military.
Wow. That's an inspirational story. And what have you learned being in the military about the PA profession?
I am extremely grateful for what I've learned through the military. It is a lot of work and dedication and passion. So one of the PAs I worked with at Recruit Training Command, he was a PA, obviously. He showed me how much compassion and how much you need to like let the recruits feel at home, because you're scared. As a lot of the time, that's the first time you ever leave home. And the people that you work under, they're yelling at you like 24/7.
Mhm.
So as a baby enlisted, so I think what, E1 through E3, you're not used to O4s, O1s all the way up, and you just like freeze. I know I did personally when I ran into a lieutenant for the first time, and he just really showed me like, hey, you just need to take it an extra step. It's okay. Let them be them. We'll help them figure it out.
Okay.
So,
Good. All right. So let's take a second, because a couple things I really liked that you did, and a couple of things I think we can make more powerful. So, first of all, I like that you're comfortable with yourself. You seem very relaxed, which goes a long way. I like that you're showing your personality. I think that's really important, particularly in a traditional style interview where it is more of a conversation. And so I really like that. So tell me about yourself is a really hard question, because it's a very open-ended question. So you're like, do you want the brief version or do you want the short version? And it's hard to know when to start and stop. So I always feel like it's nice to give structure to an unstructured question. And you have a very interesting background. One thing that you did that I really liked is that in this question, a lot of times people will say, hi, my name is Maria. I'm from wherever. I went to college at, blah, blah, blah. Well, you skipped your whole childhood. You know what I'm saying? So, so you didn't do that, which I really liked. You said, so always state who you are, where you're from. Just always a good thing to do, who you are, where you live. And then you said, I grew up with my older brother. I was adopted by my mother from India. She worked really hard to, provide for us. Maybe she showed you what work ethic, really looked like. And then you went on to say how you had your first healthcare job. And I loved how you talked about, seeing those patients smile. I thought that was really nice. And then kind of transitioning to, you said you joined the military, but the reason I asked you the follow-up question was because I wanted to hear a little bit more, about that. So you said you went to college, did your exercise science at Tiffin, and then decided to enlist. So maybe you could just expand a little bit more at that point and just say, one of my best friends was in the military and we made this sort of pact. I made this promise that if something ever happened, I would enlist in his place. And I think it's fine to show emotion, by the way. I like that. You seem like a real person, and kind of say what happened. And then I would actually include some of the follow-up questions I asked you in the original answer. So, to say something like, I was inspired to go to the military by my best friend, when he passed away, I enlisted in the military. Being in active duty, I have learned so much about the medical profession and how to really engage with patients and make soldiers feel more comfortable, and could really see myself in that role. Do you know what I mean? And then, you can even add to that by saying, the PA profession is sort of rooted in the military. And so I did have exposure to PAs in that area, one in particular, who served as my mentor. And so that really motivated me to become a PA. I'm really, really excited to be here today. And in my spare time, I love to do, like you said, running, when my dog gets a sprint, that kind of thing. And then just end it by saying, and I'm happy to answer any other questions you have.
Okay.
I mean, so it just has a little bit better flow to it, and not so like I did this, then I did this, then I did this. You know what I mean? It's more of a story, but saying who you are and where you're from, a little bit about your childhood, what kind of inspired you to go into the military, how that exposure to the healthcare field kind of got you where you are today. end with some hobbies and ask if they have any other questions. But
Okay.
I really liked how you answered the questions. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Well, tell me about a time where you had to handle a conflict and how it resolved.
So one of the times I had to handle a conflict was in my civilian job. We had a patient who was an addict, who was actually a motor vehicle accident patient. He was going through withdrawal and was in a paralyzed, let's see, I want to say from the shoulders down. So it was very mentally struggling for him. And it was just one of those low points during the day. It was after his therapies. We got him back into the room. Unfortunately, he had to go to the bathroom. So
Sorry about that.
no, you're good. So yeah, we had to transfer him. He didn't make it to the bathroom in time. So that really brought him down more. And I think that's what kind of triggered that mental breakdown. And he started throwing things. So we had to put our safety first, calm him down, and then get security involved just to help us keep it on a low profile. But
Okay. So what did you do specifically to calm the patient?
I spoke to him one-on-one to his level. I just kept my voice calm. I comfort him. I did what I could at my level of knowledge.
Okay. And how do you feel, the patient ultimately came out of that situation?
I think it was a little bit eyes-opening situation for him. He realized that that's not how he should be behaving, especially at his age. But he also understands that we know, like, it's not your fault. You didn't ask to be put in the situation. We will do our best, but you have to meet us halfway.
So were you scared?
A little.
Okay.
Yes.
So
'Cause, like, go
yeah.
ahead.
So I would want to know, so when they ask you about a conflict or a time where you had, a difficult interaction with someone, what I want to know is how you felt in that situation, how you managed your feelings and reacted to the person. So you kind of went through it a little quickly. I know my dogs barked and it was distracting, but basically, if you had a patient who came in and, they started getting combative, I would want to know how you felt during that situation. So maybe you say, initially I was a little bit scared because I wasn't sure, how this was going to work out. But I took a second to take a deep breath, remain calm, try to speak to the patient at their level and ask for help. Right. So that way I get a really good sense of like what you do in a high stress situation or when you're trying to manage a conflict. So be very specific about it, very intentional about what you specifically did. It's not so much about what the patient did. It's more about how you reacted to that situation, right? Because I want to know if there's something like that happening, what you're going to do, right? And ultimately you didn't panic and everything worked out and that's amazing. And then the last thing I would do is kind of even take it to the next level and just kind of say, I know that in the future as a PA, I'm probably going to handle conflicts like this, more routinely. And by having that exposure now and learning how to manage and react to those situations, I feel like that's going to help me in the future in my career. Do you see what I'm saying? Just kind of take it one step further and like tie it in, to how that will help you in the future. And I think that would be really powerful answer to the question. Yeah. So would you consider yourself a leader or a follower?
If you would have asked me this question a year ago, I would have considered myself a follower. However, in this past year, I have definitely stepped out of my comfort zone to become a leader. Like I said, military, I have a lot of what we call collateral duties. So as the command fitness leader, I am in charge of 300 sailors, making sure that they are physically ready to be deployed. What that means is I need to lead physical trainings. So between anywhere from 2 to 50 sailors at a time. I need to keep my directions clear, short. That way they understand them. I can easily direct them. I need to provide examples of what I mean, of exercises, cool down stretches, warm up stretches, everything. So I am definitely at a leader level now.
Definitely.
What else? Urinalysis, we have to keep to a zero tolerance policy. So I need to keep that enforced, which means I need to put on my big girl panties and use my voice that I actually have learned.
Okay,
So.
good. So I think that was a great answer. And I love how you kind of showed an evolution of yourself and said, before I would have considered myself a follower and now I consider myself a leader. And then I think your example of like, being in charge of 300 sailors, but what does being in charge of 300 sailors give you? Not your big girl pants. It gives you want to be specific about what it gives you, right? So being in charge of 300 sailors means you have to use good communication. You have to lead by example. You have to show up confident, and ready to attack any challenge that's going to come your way. So I would focus on, because you have really great leadership skills. So I would focus on using words like that and say, in being in charge of 300 sailors, I have to be organized. I have to be confident. I have to lead by example. I have to be a good communicator and make sure everything is going that way. I also think though, that you could also say that there are some scenarios in which you are going to probably be a follower. Do you know what I mean? Like, especially in working as part of a team. But I love the fact that you kind of showed what your leadership was, but I would just be a little bit more specific in highlighting all the amazing qualities you gained from that experience. Okay. And some people will say, you can be both things. You can be a leader and you can be a follower, and you probably should be depending on your situation. But for you, I think just really highlighting those qualities will be even more powerful in your answer,
Okay.
Yeah. So have you considered other health professions?
Yes. So when I was first looking into the medical field, because I knew I always wanted to be in the medical field, I didn't know what. I considered doctor/MD. I considered nursing. I considered pharmacy because I got accepted into a pharmacy program. Mm-hmm. What else? Not lab tech. Not saying that's not what I considered, but that's not what I'm thinking of. Surge tech. There we go. So I did consider all of those. I looked at the details, what they entailed, what they require, and really just the PA profession matched my personality and my professional goals the best.
What does that mean?
So that means for me, I always knew I wanted to be a provider. I knew I wanted to be a leader. Looking at the civilian sector and the military sector, I love how PAs interact with their patients. I love the compassion that they give, the trustness that they have to rely on their patients to tell the truth. And I don't want to say I trust too much, but I do trust people more, I believe, than others. The work-life balance also really helped me. I like the lateral mobility that the PA profession has, and I like the medical aspect rather than the nursing aspect of PA.
Okay. So this question is just another way of asking why PA, right?
Yes.
So, okay, a couple of things I would tweak. So you can totally tell them you got accepted into a pharmacy program, but then you're going to have to tell them why you don't want to go.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying?
So you think I shouldn't?
So it's really up to you if you're going to, so the way for you, because you explored so many different options, I would say something like,
honestly, it's just not where my heart is. My heart is with the PA profession.
Okay. And why is that specifically, just out of curiosity?
That's just how I feel. I like actually interacting with patients. Yeah. And I don't think I don't want to say this, but stuck behind a counter dispensing medications doesn't sound.
It just doesn't resonate with you as much, right?
No.
So I think what I would say in your situation is something like, well, before we even get to that, what kind of impact do you think you want to have on patients as a PA? This is not an interview question. I'm just asking you.
So discussing with other medical providers. Sorry, it's one of my work phones.
That's okay.
Discussing with other medical providers and with patients that I've seen, they would like for providers to be able to sit down and have more than like a 10-minute conversation with them. Because I understand that the medical field wants to push seeing as many patients in a day they can, which leads to burnout for providers. It leads to burnout for the other workers.
Mhm.
And then patients don't really get their symptoms treated. They just get medication to
Mhm.
mask it. So
Yeah.
I think we need to sit down for more than 10 minutes at a time, actually get to know the patient.
And where do you see yourself kind of working in the PA profession? Do you think you want to stay in the military sector, civilian sector, or something like that?
Initially, I would like to start in the military sector
Hmm.
because with the program that I want to use to pay for schooling, you do owe 3 to 4 years
Yeah.
back, which I have no problem. I really want to do active duty as a provider.
Okay.
And then I want to go and take the skills that I've learned and go to a underserved area and
Okay.
use those skills. Because I know with underserved areas, you're not going to have the latest technology.
Yeah.
But with the military, especially with Greenside, you need to learn to work with the stuff you have.
Yeah.
And I think that will help me significantly.
Oh, okay. I love this. This is how we're going to shape this answer. Okay. Because I think your YPA, and the reason why I'm asking you these questions is because I think your YPA is much deeper than lateral mobility, work-life balance. All of those things are true. I'm not saying they're not true. I'm just saying that, yes, you identify with that because everyone loves the PA profession, to be honest, because shorter time to training, you can work in any specialty in any part of healthcare across the lifespan as an advanced practitioner, as a PA, right? So that is what's unique about the profession. And that's why a lot of us resonate with it. But I think for you, what's more important is that you want to have an impact on the soldiers that you see being taken care of. You want to be spending more time with them and really, getting to know them and meeting them for their needs and goals. And then ultimately you want to take that out into the underserved communities and really apply what you learned in the military to impact greater marginalized populations. And I think that that's something that you really should highlight. So when you say, when I asked you, have you considered other health professions? I think your answer is yes. I've considered pretty much all of the healthcare professions. I knew I wanted to go into medicine, so I really did my research. I think, first of all, that shows you're thoughtful, right?
Mhm.
So you just say, I really did my research. And in fact, I even got accepted into a pharmacy program. But that is not really where my heart is. And the reason for that is because I have had exposure to the PA profession, in my clinical work and in the military. And I've seen the impact that PAs can have on the soldiers we work with, just taking a little bit of extra time, understanding, being active duty myself, where they're coming from, learning how to use the resources we have at, our fingertips to be able to take care of those patients. And I can really see myself as an active duty, PA. But then I hope to take those skills and really translate them to the civilian population by helping underserved communities with access to care. And I really identify with the basis of which the PA profession was grown, because it really is rooted in the military, right? It was started in the late 1960s by medics. So, I think it's important to kind of connect those pieces for them. Then you don't even have to say anything about why not pharmacy. You just have to say why PA, right?
Okay.
And it has to be specific to you. And I think lateral mobility and all those things are great, but I like this answer better because it really shows that you connect with the profession on a different level. Do you know what I mean? Now, you could always say somewhere in there, you could always say something like, I was even accepted to a pharmacy program, but ultimately I really connect with the PA profession, not only because of the ability to move between specialties and, have the ability to kind of create the work-life balance that I want, but also because I've had a lot of exposure, to PAs in the military and then kind of go in that area. So you could do that too, making the answer just more unique to you,
Okay.
because a lot of people are going to say that you want to stand out. I want you to stand out, you know?
I want to stand out too.
I know. And you have such a cool background. So definitely I would integrate those pieces and really make it, you know, more about your YPA rather than YPA in general, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yes.
And then, okay. So last question I will ask you is, why do you want to attend this program?
So you guys have a lot of highlights for the program that I'm looking for. You guys have the ability for us to pick our rotations of where we go. And then I can go and be in underserved areas. I can go do a rotation in the prison system for women. I think that's something significant. And I might be biased because I am a woman, but I really was thinking about that on my ride home today. And I'm like, I really want to make a change for some people, even if they are, again, in crappy situations.
Mm-hmm.
But you, like I said, you guys have the scholarship program. So those who go serve in rural areas get a little bit of a stipend for their housing allowance, essentially. That helps out. You guys are a faith-based college, which for me, I can finally focus on my faith and take a little bit of time out of my busy schedule and put that forward to be the best version of myself. You guys actually invest in your students, which will make me have a great foundation for my patients. So then they can have the best version of me. But yes,
okay.
no.
So you're basically saying their rotations allow you to rotate in underserved areas and unique populations, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then the second thing you said was that you said faith-based, and you said about women, you know, being in the prison system. What else? Did I miss one?
We're allowed to pick our rotations.
Picking rotations. Okay. And then anything else unique about their curriculum?
Not that I've noticed.
Okay. So I would avoid saying you guys. So what I would say to them is, you know, saying, I really want to attend this program because I find that your program has some unique features that I didn't see for other programs. Like, we have the ability to choose our rotations, even if those are in underserved areas or unique populations like a women's prison, right?
Okay.
And have the opportunity to have a stipend for that, which I think would be very helpful, because in my heart, I really want to make a difference for these populations. That's what I felt from you. You know what I mean? It's just the wording around it needs to be a little bit more polished. And then say, you know, and secondly, I connect with the faith-based aspect of your curriculum. My faith is something that's always been important to me. But as somebody who's really busy and focused on taking care of other people, sometimes I don't get the time to really focus on my own, you know, faith and beliefs and become the best version of myself. Or I really feel that your program will give me the tools I need to be really a faith and service-based provider in the future. Do you see what I'm saying? So it just sounds a little bit smoother. And just make sure you're saying your program.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Just a little bit cleaner. Overall, some positives that I love about you is that you smile often, you show your personality, you have a very unique background. I think that you are very passionate about medicine and taking care of others, but I feel like you're selling yourself short in some of these answers. You know what I mean? So it's really getting that confidence to be like, you know, I gained this from that experience, and this is how I'm going to use it. Right. And I'm really passionate about this because this is what I learned. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like sometimes you're hiding behind the other words, you know, like, oh, I saw the patient do that, and then it worked out okay. No, you did like a really good job in that situation. So don't sell yourself short. I think really practicing out loud these questions will help you, you know, going forward.
Okay.
So make sure to keep that your when you choose your words, just make sure they're more professional. You definitely want to be showing your personality, but you want to stay professional too. And any questions you're going to ask them, what questions are you going to ask them?
So doing my research from this year to this year, or from last year to this year,
Yeah.
I noticed that there was a significant change in the tuition cost. Can
Okay.
you explain that? Are you guys bringing on more instructors? Are you providing better equipment?
Okay.
What changes made that occur?
Okay. And then you can ask something like, you know, why, if it's faculty, I would ask them like, what do you love about being faculty at this program? Or why did you decide to be faculty at this program? I would even ask something like, do you foresee any changes to the program in the next few years, right? Because you're going to be there. So those are good questions too. If you need like 2 or 3 in case somebody, you know, takes your question or you forget. So I think that that's good. I think that you look very nice. Is this what you plan to wear?
Yes.
Okay, you look very good, very professional. You're not fidgeting, you know, you don't have, you know, awkward body movements. So make sure you're keeping eye contact. It's super hard on Zoom. So I get that. But, you know, overall, just a couple of tweaks and a little more practice, and I think you're good to go.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
I'm so excited. Keep me posted.
I will. I have another session with you, I think next Thursday, because I booked it last night.
Okay, cool. So I can come back and ask you some of the questions again and see how, not all of them. I'm going to ask you different ones too, and then come back and see how you did.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, it was so nice to meet you. Thank you for agreeing to do this. I really appreciate it. And I will see you next week.
See you next week. Thank you so much.
All right. Sounds good. Bye.
Bye.